group, just to give you a bit of a background to let you know how we actually got here. We have a group called Youth Connect group. There was a group of us that went to Kigali last year as entrepreneurs, and went as Good Vibes Business Network. And then some people also got there by themselves. So it's a good group of young people doing business. And we decided that we couldn't get together because of the Corona crisis. So we decided to catch up through the Zoom, which is a new thing. I'd never used it before. I don't think many people in the group had used it. I think Abobo, maybe he's going to join us in a minute, had a bit more knowledge about it. So me and Aneem started our first Zoom meeting with Willie. Willie's the one who actually hosted that meeting, which was a surprise to us how clear and how good we could actually get a communication. And a few of the other group joined. And then we just felt that it was important that because the world is going in this way, people cannot meet. South Sudan is no different. I mean, Corona is hitting, COVID-19 is hitting the world completely. And we thought that it was important, maybe just to have a discussion, to find out how business people getting on, and also to open people's minds to the fact that Zoom can work here. I'm actually using a MTN tethering connection right now as we speak, even though I didn't want to be on internet, but it seems to be working fine. And these are some of the things that we want to try to make become a regular thing. We wanted to do today more as like a test, an introduction, so people can all get involved. And then from next week, we want to start actually like basically doing online sessions where we'll be inviting panelists to come in, whether it be from MTN or Liquid Telecom or Mgurush or the banking sector, just to have an understanding of how can the private sector in South Sudan use the digitization as a tool to progress business, because it's going to be a very hard time for now of how business is going to progress. So I think what we're going to do first, we've asked Willie to give us some of the people maybe that are not in Juba that have joined us, a bit of understanding of what are the government protocols at the moment for COVID prevention, what are the laws in place, and what's going on. Maybe Willie, you can take us from here.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Dencon, for the opportunity to be here. As he has just said, we started it from a small group of Youth Connect who had gone to Rwanda. Mostly some are entrepreneurs, others are into civil societies and stuff like that. So it's really the way he has just said, the way the things are changing, the way people do business is going to change. The way people communicate, the way people do contracts and stuff, they're going to change. So I'm going to talk about the government directives that they have put in place. So the curfew was from 8 up to 6, but right now it has been reduced from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. So that's part of the directives that the government is putting in place so that we're able to elevate the corona that we're in now. Also, there are certain places like the tea and shisha places whereby most of the people meet there. So most of those places are currently closed. Use of boda boda. Right now, boda boda is not, people who are using boda boda, they are not supposed to carry passengers. They are only supposed to carry either cargo or things like that. So as to ensure that the people don't, and also the interstate movement. The movement from one, like from Juba to states, there's also been, right now, if you want to go to states, like if you work for humanitarian organizations, you have to do a test so that it's able to be known if you're positive or negative, so that you don't transfer it from where we are now, from Juba to transmit it to states. Also, the closure of bars and restaurants are working because they are like essential places, food. If you want to get a food, you do the takeaway, so you're not able to eat in a hotel. And then the taxis. Currently, the taxis are not supposed to carry full. They're supposed to half the number of the people that they carry. So these are some of the measures that the government has put in place. As we stand of today, as per what the high-level task force said, currently the cases that we have are 35. we have not been able to hear if there are people who have recovered, or either there's no incident of death as per the communication from the high-level task force, or if there's any new information, then if anybody has had it, you are able to jump in and add. Yeah, thank you. So these are the few directives that the government has put in place so as to be able to protect the citizen. So let's kindly help the government, but also there are certain, like the issue of social distancing. It's quite difficult in a few places that I'm able to see. I can see that people are still meeting. People are not, like also in marketplaces whereby groceries are being sold. People are still not maintaining the social distance that's supposed to be done. You see people selling from one store to the other. They're very close to each other. People who are buying, they are touching each other. So there are certain things that I think we need to continue to inform people so that they're able to follow the guidelines that the government has put in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie. I think I just wanted to add that, yeah, basically the majority of shops have been closed down, apart from essentials. I think also sometimes because movement is going on in Juba, I was asking the question the other day, like what about like mechanics and spare parts and oils and these things? These things are also questions. There's a bit of a gray area where people are not sure what is exactly classed as essential or not essential. But for me, I see like the movement in Juba is not a complete lockdown at all. People are still moving. People are not fully desensitized yet to the situation of what COVID-19 is, and they won't greet anybody maybe the whole day, and then they'll see a cousin, and then they'll be like, "Oh, it's my cousin. Let me shake his hand."
Yeah, and the spare parts that you were saying,
how contagious it is.
Yeah. Most of the spare parts shops, most of the spare parts shops are currently closed, except maybe they open them from back doors. Maybe it's something you go and remove, but also it's not allowed for those kind of places to be open. And then I forgot about the shops like which are selling clothes. Most of those are closed, except maybe pharmacies which are being currently, they are really essential. Yeah, because thank you. That's what I just wanted to add on what you were saying.
Okay, no problem. Now, I think what we're gonna do now is like just talk a little bit about. Maybe I'll start just a little bit about how businesses have been affected since these prevention measures have come into place. I mean, for me, for those of you that know me, we do our core business is business networking, business to business networking, which can be done, yes, through communication like this, but it's preferable. We like to do our networking events every quarter, face to face, and we have quite a few people who come. So I mean, we've had to put everything on hold, and we don't see any good vibes business networking events coming up in the near future whatsoever. And then I know there's a lot of people from different sectors in here. Maybe Raphael or Abul could tell us a little bit. Raphael, actually, to do with the banking, what's the reports? I know you're not in Juba, but what are the reports you're getting from your bank at the moment on how things are functioning?
Thanks, Duncan. Maybe just a few comments on what has happened in the banking sector. One, of course, was the issue around the opening times. Yeah. Now we can only open up to 1 p.m. Generally from 8:30 a.m. in the morning to 1 p.m. That limits the amount of time people can actually transact. As you know, South Sudan is mostly a cash economy. So we usually have to serve people at the branch level, and the closure of banks early has a lot of impact in terms of how people are able to transact and move on to the next level of transaction they want to do in the market. So that's a big impact, but we do appreciate that it's important to have limited opening times. Otherwise, the more people you have in the bank, the more people interacting at banking halls, the more likely that you'll have COVID transmission in that particular case. I think the bigger issue for us especially is because we deal outside Juba, mostly within the various states now. The the 10 states and the 3 administrative areas, is that we can't move into the particular locations quite easily because most of our staff need to get tested before they get approval to move from Juba into the locations. There's a bit of issues around how many people can be tested at any particular time. So you need to be able to get COVID-free status. And then after that, there's a bit of issues around whether you can get into a plane to move to the next location. So that's impacting our business heavily from a movement perspective. But we are happy the government has increased the testing capability now at the main institution now. The next issue is around movement also by road, which is also curtailed because the number of checkpoints have increased, and therefore it needs a bit more time to move from one state to another, unlike in previous periods where it was quite easy to transact between states. And then lastly, I think the major impact for us is the closure of international borders as well. We rely heavily on movements of cash from the region and other European countries into Juba, and vice versa when we're repatriating some of the cash. It's still possible, but now it's taking a longer period of time to be able to do that. And we see this impacting the level of transactability for our clients going forward. Then I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Raphael. That's very insightful. And maybe if Emmanuel, I can see Emmanuel Tongun is here. He's into the pharmaceuticals and he's very much involved in the COVID-19 response. Emmanuel, are you there? Can you hear us?
Hello.
I think it's a bit, I think the network is a bit bad for you, Emmanuel. Maybe we'll come back to you in a minute. Let me invite.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, no, you just came on now. You started sounding good. Hold on. Emmanuel.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
You can hear me much better?
Much better.
Let me adjust the microphone.
Okay, yeah. Please give us some... Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm not directly involved with the task force, but I deal with a few aspects very close to them, and part of them is the advising team, which actually falls a little bit closer to my responsibility, is liaising with UNDP to bring in more test kits and cartridges. And these are for a specific machine called the Gene Expert machine, which is already available in country. So all you need is now the update on its software, and then from there on, the new cartridges. Hopefully we should be getting this about in 2 weeks or so time, due to, of course, logistics being a big problem, getting them in from the USA all the way to Juba. Once this is done, at least with a bit more training, we should be able to expand our at selected areas within the region where some of the machines are, and this will require some training, retraining of some of the staff on how to use it. The good thing, it's done all over the, I would say, not only in at least 5 locations in Juba, and we're looking at another maybe 10 locations around the country. With that in mind, it will cut down testing time and also improve the number of people who can be tested at any one particular time, because the kit is a 65-minute kit. So your results come out very quick, and it's automated. So it's quite easy dealing with compared to the manual stuff that we have at the moment. With regards to preparation, of course, most of the information has already been out. We don't have enough preparation. I mean, we don't have a quarantine zone, and this is what the biggest problem is. What we have is the quarantine area for the, I would say, sick people, for if everyone who actually go from
Emmanuel,
what's called the
I think we're having some issues.
Yeah, big problem. Okay, how, for example, the coronavirus has affected our other business sides is shortage of pharmaceuticals coming in. We can try to address it. The task force and sent messages, discussed with our minister as well as the others. There's a big shortage of pharmaceuticals going to happen very soon, and we've been trying to tell them since March to close its borders to all exports until the 7th of May. So nothing is coming out of India from mid-March all the way to the 7th of May. And we're not so sure if they're going to reopen the export of medicines out again. Various countries have closed in some of the essential medications to be, including countries like Egypt, which a lot of people actually did rely on. So we don't know how things are going to look at in the next say 4 to 8 weeks. We may just have to rely on some of our partners who are in the East Africa zone, assuming that they actually have the capacity to cover everything else for the region. Any questions?
I personally got cut out there in the middle somewhere, so I didn't hear all of it. But I think what we'll do now is
I have a very bad network.
It's okay, no problem, bro. I think I also have a bad network. What can we do? But we're getting there, which is a good thing. So what I wanted to do, I saw that Abuni is here. Abuni's in the ICT sector. And I think Abuni, you guys actually have one of the biggest opportunities now to really make an impact. And I'm happy that you're here. And I wanted you to give us a little bit of information on are people in the private sector calling now ICT specialists and wanting to get involved in websites and web design and also internet connectivity? Are these questions arising much more now, or how are things for ICT sector?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Yeah. Thank you, Deng. Maybe Emmanuel Tongun's network. Hello. Yeah. Can I go on? Yeah. Hello. Yes, it's Abuni here.
Go ahead, Abuni. Go ahead. You're loud and clear.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. It's good that we interact and make conversations about things like this. I'm the managing director of Dynamic Consults, which is an ICT firm. So our services vary from development of websites, email hosting, and whatever ICT you bring to us, we find a way of how we can give you a solution. In the beginning, when this Corona things had started, I mean, the pandemic had started, everybody went into this space where you're like, okay, what's going to happen in the ICT sector? Are we going to collapse? Are we going to? But then again, we came to realize for the ICT sector, we realized that people were actually taking ICT services more than it was before. Before we used to not register so many domains. In the past 3 to 4 weeks now, you find in a week I'm able to register 5 to 6 domains a week, which is something which has not been taking place. Yeah, so we expect there should be. I mean, as people are going to be working from home, people have to use technology as we're doing right now. So for us, we're waiting to see. You know, our ICT sector also in South Sudan it's basically at its infancy. We're talking about typing and sending an email and basically the basics. So we don't have a very complicated ICT sector. That in itself is a problem, but it's also an opportunity for people who might be thinking twice, how do I get into the ICT sector? So for us, we're looking at it as an opportunity. For the start, we thought it was a bad thing, but then as we're going through this Corona pandemic, we're coming to understand that it's actually an opportunity that needs to be exploited. So we're watching keenly, and we are optimistic that things will happen in the ICT sector, and we hope people will take up most of the services. I don't know if my statement is in line with what was, because I came a bit late. And
that is what it is. Can we just have some quick protocol? If you're not talking on the microphone, could you mute your microphone? because sometimes we're hearing people in the background. Let me see who's the whole culprit here. Francisco, please, not to single you out, but put your. I'm trying to mute it from here, and it doesn't seem to be working. But
Then just a question. Just a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I mean, away from my ICT sector, I know we just talked to Emmanuel Tongun previously. How does the ministry, I think I made a post about it, how does the ministry look to work with the private sector, Ministry of Health? Or how, I know that there's a people, I think in Kenya or wherever it is, you'd find that Lancet, it's a laboratory service, they're able to provide testing for the private testing for the COVID-19. Is that an approach that could be used in South Sudan? That's for Emmanuel Tongon.
Emmanuel?
Hello, Abune. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. I'm all right, man.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's a very good question. Lancet is actually a well-developed, I would say, laboratory service provider. They're based in all over Africa except South Sudan and a few other places. It's a South African-based company, but they have branches all over. Their branch in East Africa is actually better equipped than most of the governments, by the way. They have quite good equipment. And so they were actually carrying out some of the tests on behalf of the government when the government didn't have capacity. So now they've been licensed to do so. Of course, Nairobi Hospital has also been doing the same, and they started doing it, charging a fee of about 10,000 Kenya shillings. It's about $100 per test. And there's not very much we can do here in South Sudan. We are not.
Hello, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, I think we need to pause you there.
I think Emmanuel needs another network.
Yeah. Let me just. I don't think he's even here.
Emmanuel, your connection is bad.
Okay.
I think we're gonna have to leave Emmanuel.
I need a totally new network.
Yeah. But now, look, Abuni, I think your point was valid, and the original point. I mean, I don't know much about the Ministry of Health and how they're looking to help the private sector. But I think that the private sector in South Sudan has a lot of work to do by ourselves, because you see all of these packages that are going on in Europe, and even in Africa, some countries are helping entrepreneurs and business people to stay afloat. But I think with conversations like this, we can really understand how can we come together and like push as a group to see the kind of help that we might be able to get. Hold on. Okay, there's some questions here. Nick Star, business capacity and ICT, are they equipped to utilize ICT tools, Zoom, WebEx, co-working apps, etc.? Bonnie, what do you think about that question? You have to unmute your mic.
Yeah, I'm saying the question. Can you please say that again? Sorry, I didn't get
that. It's here. It's in the comments section, and it says, okay, wait. Question to ask: Are businesses sufficiently aware of the possibilities of ICT sectors and business capacity and ICT? Are they equipped to utilize ICT tools, i.e., Zoom, WebEx, co-working apps, etc.?
Yeah, thank you again. That question is very interesting, and it's, thank you for bringing it up. The ICT sector in South Sudan, let us come to know that it's quite, I mean, as much as we have many people who've been able to be out there studying the diaspora and come back to South Sudan, ICT is quite basic. I would say it's entry level sort of ICT. So our people are the people ready to consume some of these services? Yes and no. Yes, if you're interacting with someone who sort of understands the importance of it. The majority, no. Majority people, when you're selling them, like today, if I want to sell a domain to somebody, I would have to educate them first about what a domain is. So you can see that education comes first, and then secondly, you would have to educate them. So yes, we would have to develop some wide sort of way of how capacity or the need we need to express to people that this thing is important. You guys can do it like this or like that. But also there's this natural way of how it can work, because now we are a distance from each other. You have no choice but to learn how to use Zoom. So by default, you have no choice but to do that. So yes, as for us, as ICT sector, yes, we have to up our game in terms of trying to make people know that there's this application, this is how we can use it, it's important for you in this way, and it can increase your productivity in this way. So the aspect of educating them is important. So like for us at Dynamic Consult, what we used to do is we used to conduct like every quarter do a workshop. And that workshop, what is it about? It's about you bring guys together and teach them the importance of a certain software, for example. And by teaching them, that's when they'll come to realize, oh, this is actually important for me. So I think there's a lot to be done, basically. Yeah. I don't know if that answers. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, we have some questions going on. If people can see the box, Emmanuel now is going through text. He's answering some of the questions. I think Raphael bring up a good question for Emmanuel. Maybe before I move on, I'll read the question. Then Emmanuel, you can write it in the box, and I can tell it back to the people after the next speaker. Raphael asks, any plans for private players to start COVID testing and issue COVID certificates to allow for travel interstate, which I think will make it quicker for people to move on. If people can go to a private hospital. And Emmanuel's answered, Raphael, at the moment, no. There is no PCR testing within the private sector. We had been pushing for funding from Central Bank for Dr. Oromo Clinic to get one, but this failed since January. A PCR equipment is about 80,000 K, I presume USD. And I don't know what PCR is. Maybe you could write that in layman terms for us. So we'll come back to that. Now I see that my good friend Saint from MTN is here. And we actually wanted to get Saint on next week's panel. I think next week we're gonna do a panel, but I wanted to just get your view on how is MTN, because right now, this is not a promotion for you, so don't try to use me later on a billboard. But I'm using an MTN tethering from my phone, which seems to be working quite fine.
The same here.
So,
the same here.
Yeah, so
it's working great.
So I don't know, Saint, if you told your technical people to make sure between 2 and 3 that this thing is working well for us. But thank you. But maybe you could just tell us about what MTN's been up to, and do you have plans to increase data or these kind of things in these times?
Okay, thanks, Deng, and good afternoon, everybody. It's good to join this conversation. I think from MTN's side, it's been a bit of a struggle because we are, of course, aware of the challenges, the structural and infrastructural challenges of actually trying to build a technology business in an environment such as this. Like, I just got off the phone. I actually joined late because we have a site that's been down for the last 4 days in Ikotos, because the local council guys are refusing to allow our vendors to go and service the site. They're asking them to pay 50,000 to get approval to be able to go and service the site. So it's like some of these challenges, you can't really just dream about them, and it's like a daily thing that you have to deal with. So yes, it's a bit of a challenge. And I think what COVID has done is to bring a lot of these challenges to the fore, because then previously it was more or less like, it's an MTN problem. But now a problem like this comes up and you get policymakers stand up, because now they come to understand that, look, people need to connect if they are unable to move en masse to be able to work or to be able to travel to go to a ministry to go and have a meeting. So then now, from the collaboration point of view, you begin to get the sense that there is that positivity in investing a lot more in technology and building world-class infrastructure, because we have a new normal. So for us in MTN, that's how we are looking at it. That is a difficult period, but we can actually see a future that is going to be much brighter, because then we've all been walking out of our slumber, so to speak, to want to invest and move faster as a country. So I think primarily that's my initial comments. Across the general business landscape, we've seen a considerable growth in the business because a lot more people are talking. But then on the flip side is the challenges with getting fueling sites and things like that, which comes with any unexpected situation that will happen to any business. But I think largely we are trying as much as possible to keep the networks running, and I'm glad that you testify that it's working. On the education side, which is what we've been doing in the last couple of months, and it's because of the nature of the work we do, we are on the ground in the markets and everywhere. We realized the big deficit in terms of people's understanding of this corona thing and what it really is. So as a policy, we stopped selling SIM cards in the market. We were sending our vans out there in the markets, just playing recorded messages and educating people. And that's really a space that if it doesn't get fixed soon enough, you end up having people getting infected and not even being aware that they are infected, and then just spreading it all over. So we've had a couple of discussions with UNDP, WHO, and a couple of other NGOs who have come on board to help us with material that we can use to push the education in the country. So I think largely it's been more or less from the education side, of collaboration with the government, the ministry, the UNDP guys, super helpful, quick turnaround in terms of approvals for our communications. And on the business side, trying to manage the challenges and the unexpected happenings that have put us in the current situation that we're in.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think this is a nice segue now for us to talking of UNDP. We have Tong with us. Tong, head of solutions mapping for UNDP Accelerator Lab, which was launched last year. Tong, are you here with us, Tong?
Yeah, hello. I don't know. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about, first of all, the Accelerator Lab, and then talk about some of the things that you guys have been doing in the last month or so around the COVID-19 response.
Okay, that's great. So the Accelerator Lab was started last year around October time. And what it's about is trying to find grassroots solutions. And then when we find them, try to experiment with them to see if they can be scaled up or not. So we work directly with the government. We work with other partners in the private sector. And then when we get our results, we share it with the country office to try and change some of the programs that we're working on. So over the last 3 months or so, we were focusing on youth unemployment and entrepreneurship, trying to see how we can be able to find solutions towards it. But now that COVID-19 has kicked in and it's really impacting youth unemployment, it's creating wider gaps. So we've been trying to see what novel solutions actually are being done at the moment on the grassroots. So we've also been working with some private sector partners to see how we can boost some of their capacity. In terms of UNDP, there's a facility which was set up for COVID-19. And then a little bit about where the organization is going in the future to support small, medium enterprises. It's built on 5 different pillars. So one of them is to provide forward-looking market intelligence. The second one is going to be to facilitate market access and build inclusive markets, including with MNCs. Then the next one is focusing on accelerating digital transformation. And then the 4th pillar is going to be deploy financing for small, medium enterprises and local governments in partnership with UN Capacity Development Fund. And then the 5th pillar is going to be on strengthening the ecosystem for small and medium sized enterprises to survive and grow. So this is going to be, it's on a global scale, UNDP globally, and it will also be here in South Sudan. So that's what UNDP's offer is going to be.
Thank you, Tom. Now, I wanted to ask Abul, Lydia Abul, about, you have a company that is a cleaning company, Fresh Start Cleaning Incorporated. I think, I don't know exactly, maybe you can inform us more. How is the response now? Is there a lot more demand for cleaning companies, and does your company provide COVID-19 specific cleaning for somebody. If they called you in, would you be able to come in and spray? And I'm not sure exactly how it works. Maybe you could give us some more information. Are you there? I think you need to unmute.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have a cleaning company called First Touch. It deals with fumigation, pest control, cleaning of offices and all these things. And yes, there's been a lot of demand, and we've been disinfecting some places. We have some chemicals for disinfecting places, and also kind of just fumigating overall. And we've also been selling some protective equipment, like the masks and the sanitizers and all these things. So yeah.
All right, that's excellent. Have you guys been having trouble when you're moving on the streets with your teams? Are your people being stopped or told that they are not practicing social distancing, or do the police and the people that are regulating understand that also cleaning is a necessary service? Have you found any difficulties in getting your work done?
Honestly, at the moment, we haven't experienced any difficulties because maybe it's still a bit small scale, so we haven't really experienced any problems. So, yeah. But
Okay,
I really hope that the government can also work together with small companies like ours to do like daily fumigations, like what's happening like in Kenya and all these things. The youths are being given these contracts to fumigate the city daily, like at night and all these things. So those are some of the things that we are looking at.
Okay, excellent. I think for one of our next conferences, we need to get somebody maybe from the Ministry of Commerce to an industry to come and give us an understanding of how the government plan to get SMEs in locally owned companies involved in the response, because all we seem to hear is a cry that there's no money and a lot of big budgets, but there's no money. But maybe there's some work that we can help to get things done. Now I'm looking for somebody that's in the diaspora. I can see a few of you are here. Maybe because I want to know, maybe there's some lessons that we might be able to learn from some of the countries that our people are living in, of how maybe, even if it's not in business, just in general life, of if they've seen something good that's being done where they are, that maybe we could try to help implement here. So I know Nikki, Bagoa, I can see Aggie, Ash, any of you guys have something, even a Jack is in Nairobi, maybe, or Tim, maybe you guys can say something that can help us. Anybody's welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Deng, thank you for organizing this. This is brilliant. It's fantastic to see and engage with Juba. I am based in Brussels, Belgium, heart of the European Union. So it's on government level a priority. We are now on week 7, I believe, of lockdown, which means there's no public gatherings, there's no restaurants, gyms, everything is closed. There are police patrols, there are fines given out. They are taken extremely serious here. We're all working from home. I suppose it's easier here because we don't have to worry about generators or fuel or infrastructure. It's pretty easy to work from home here, which makes life a lot easier. In terms of ongoing situations, we already know that we are looking for an exit strategy. By mid-May, we should be going back to how life used to be in in February, because we went into lockdown March 8th, I believe. So it's been heavy for us here. I don't know how it is in Juba. I hope everybody's faring well. I hope everybody is taking precautions and trying to mentally and also in creating spaces for themselves. It's difficult, I can imagine, but I hope everybody's trying. But Brussels is going all right. Things are difficult, but business will be as usual in about a month and a half. That's a small feedback from Belgium.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful, Nikki. Thanks for coming, and you know, it's always a pleasure to see our brothers and sisters outside having an interest in what's going on back home. And I think this is going to be a conversation in the future that we'll be having a lot, is about how to try and get the skills and knowledge of people in the diaspora, even if it's not physically coming home for long term, but to have that connection with people here that are trying to do things progressively. So, Begoya, do you mind if you tell us a little bit about, I understand you're in Australia. How is it in Australia, and what's the situation?
I think you're referring to me. I missed.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. I'm currently based in Melbourne, and I've been working from home as well, in terms of kind of what Nikki said, in terms of things like infrastructure and things like that. That's not really the main issue. I think also it's been interesting to see that in terms of like the Western world, and it is not as prepared as I guess they would speak about or project. There are no real great long-term solutions. Sort of on the community level, there's you know, a lot of work around rent amnesty, in terms of people who, you know, have lost work or unable to pay their rent. So there's about an amnesty for the next 6 months, but that also doesn't really protect people, because at the end of the 6 months, you can be evicted. So there's a lot of very kind of band-aid solutions at the moment. So it's going to be really interesting to see that. There's definitely a lot of disparities among socially and economically disadvantaged communities, which we know a lot of South Sudanese communities are in that category. So in terms of even things like schooling from home, even, you know, there was a lot of good resources in language and people going out and delivering goods and services and things like that. So there are good things happening, but also there aren't really concrete solutions that I'm seeing this current government deliver. New Zealand's a really interesting example of a government that really early on was investing already in good ways of kind of mitigating the current, you know, economic and social impacts. So here, not great long-term ones, but I'm watching to kind of see, especially for our diaspora here, how we can move forward. Small businesses are really being impacted. I've got friends that own businesses, and in places like Footscray, if anybody's familiar with this, with that part of Melbourne. So there are big losses ahead, and there are businesses that are gonna have to liquidate, I know that for sure, or that can't operate anymore. There's some government assistance in place, but also there's really small windows in who is applicable and who's able to get that kind of assistance. So a lot of holes, a lot of band-aid solutions, and communities like ours are falling through them. So yeah.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that. I don't know, at this point now, we've got a few minutes left, and I'm sure there's some people that are patiently there. Maybe their name hasn't been called or a topic hasn't been raised, but if there's anybody that wants to add something to this discussion for a few minutes, I think we'll give some people a chance to say something. Aggie, I can see that I'm still learning. Aggie, Agarut, I can see that your hand, does that mean that you want to say something, right? Please go ahead.
Quick little thing, because my concern is for you guys. If you don't have the infrastructure that we have, like everyone's mentioned, if that all gets shut down, is there a risk of violence and things kicking off in the South Sudan? And what do you think the government's doing to help you guys or to mitigate that?
I mean, I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that, but I can give you my opinion. Look, you know, when there's hard times, there's always going to be some kind of camaraderie between people. I mean, this time you can see around a lot of the world, is this the flip side, both sides of the coin. there's been a lot of xenophobia of people blaming others for bringing it or that type of thing going on. But I think mostly within countries, people, especially in South Sudan, the feeling that I'm getting is that everybody feels like they're in this together, you know? So I don't think this is gonna be a time where it's gonna start becoming a big issue. And in my personal opinion, I think the government have done quite a good job in keeping things going, as in the fuels still in the country. I suppose East Africa as a region have done quite well with allowing cross-border trade. And there have been some cases of corona that have been passed by this, but it's much more important that people have food and people can survive. So at this specific moment, I'm not worried about any type of violence occurring because of COVID-19 at all.
In terms of not just violence, but necessity. If people are starving and not eating, are there going to be riots? Like people are going to be searching for food. Like these like basics. If you're locked down, if you ever get to the point where you guys are on lockdown, how are people going to access their essentials to live and survive?
You know, I think this is something that we're seeing. Maybe other people can join in, but what we're seeing in Africa, like for instance, even in Kenya, which is a very developed country, and they have they're really doing well. They can't actually fully lock down the country because there's so many people dependent on day-to-day salaries and day-to-day living. So I don't personally see. I think governments are quite smart in the fact that they know what situation they're in, and they know to what extent they can fully lock down or not lock down. I don't know, maybe somebody else has an opinion.
I don't know. I'm going to say one more. Sorry, because we have examples of India where they've done the lockdown, they sent everybody back to their regions, and people suffered and died for the cause of that because they went back with nothing. They didn't have no way of feeding their families and died on the process of going back. But anyway, I'll carry on.
I have an opinion. Yeah. Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Gorod, yeah. Well, then I kind of beg to differ from what you've said. I kind of understand where Gorod is coming from. And those are the same kind of feelings I have. Like the way our government is not organized, and especially with the food distribution and all these things. When you stop people like the border drivers from carrying people and closing all these small scale shops, then people are definitely going to starve, and it's going to cause either the crime rate is going to raise, like what's happening in Nigeria. The crime rate is really rising. And that's what I feel like in a few, because this is now new to Juba. Juba, we are like the last people to really get into this. And our case is just raised like a few days ago. So I feel like with time, these things are going to really affect us. We're still not ready for what's about to come to us. So if the government really looked into that, because yeah, we're really not organized, and it's the truth. So definitely, I feel like these things are going to affect us, especially the crime rates, and definitely it may lead to violence. That's what I feel personally.
All right, thank you, Abul. I'm gonna let Ajak come in. 1 second, huh? Let me just let Ajak come in because she hasn't said and she's got her hand up. If someone wants to talk, you can put your hand up. Saint, I see you. We'll be getting back to you next. Ajak, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Dane. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Loud and clear.
Okay. You were asking about diaspora, what we can take away from here and implement it in South Sudan. So I have something small, like I believe that moments of profound crisis, like this COVID-19 pandemic, can attract great potential, even though that's not the main aim of it. Like here in Kenya, the government has said no physical cash transfers, only through M-Pesa, which is a digitized cash system. So I believe in South Sudan, if we try to implement that, it will grow our businesses like Mgrush and NioPay. And in the future, it will get more people to try to use money transfer, digital money transfer, as opposed to cash transfer, which Mgrush and NioPay have been trying to do, but it has not really gained the traction that it should have by now. So I believe that's one of the effects that COVID-19 will have on digitization of businesses in the short and long term.
Thank you, Jack. Saint, is there something you wanted to say? Something you wanted to add?
Yes, thanks, Deng. And I basically wanted to comment on the possibility of a lockdown in Juba and how we, the guys on the ground, are prepared for it. And I think it's something that we struggle with every day, because the possibility of a lockdown in Juba will have a lot of repercussions because of some of the infrastructure deficits that some of the other guys in the team have spoken about. But more importantly, from what we see in the field, being in the markets every day, it's practically not possible to have to totally lock down a place like Juba, and that's really the inconvenient truth. And I would want to believe that the guys who are in charge of making decisions are aware of this, and it's for that same reason that it's been 3 days now since they made the announcement that the border guys should not be carrying passengers. But when you drive out, you see them with passengers, because it's a very slippery road. There's a part of me that sort of feels that they try to keep a balance in terms of how quickly they enforce some of these things versus how to also make the international community get comfort in the fact that they are up to task and they are trying to implement some of the tried and tested ways of managing this pandemic at the local level. Because then in South Sudan, you have to be more smarter locally in terms of what you want to implement. The other point I also wanted to mention is that if you look at the regions and the structure of the economy, a lot of things come out of Juba. Even when you import stuff, if you go to Awil, Wow, and all those places, they are more dependent across the border. But then in places, if you go to Lake State, you go to Jonglei and all that, Juba is like a center. So once you shut down Juba, you are unable to get a lot of resources that will go through the other parts of the country. So the practicality of shutting down the entire country when those places are not in and of themselves very independent and very self-sufficient is, in a way, you practically just push the entire country into a recession. And looking at the economic fundamentals, a place like this cannot suffer a recession. If you look at Singapore and the struggles they went through and the way they had to backtrack and re-strategize how they approached their onslaught on the pandemic because of the impact on their economy, a place like South Sudan cannot even afford that. So I'm quite sure, or I'm quite confident or hopeful that the decision will not get to the stage where you want to do a total lockdown, but more or less a split, and you probably lock down for a week and then you open up and you control people and continue the education and try to see how best the system will recover. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Saint. Yeah, Dak, I can see that you have your hand up. Would you like to add something?
I just wanted to quickly highlight also on the aspect of planning. I work with Special Olympics, which is an organization that deals with people with intellectual disabilities. And there's a lot of no consideration for people with disabilities, especially intellectual disabilities, because they require a certain kind of care. And people with intellectual disabilities have a lot of issues in the sense of, if you have people with epilepsy, they need constant medication, which a lot of times is not available in the country. So they have to be imported from outside of South Sudan. So things from that to as simple as their daily movement and their caring, because some of them have caregivers and they have to go to places like Osretna, which is a healthcare center that takes care of them. It's very difficult to look after them and to get feedback from them on how they're doing. And the fact that there's no planning for people with disabilities is actually very sad and very troubling for people like me who work in that arena. And I also think that it's important that if we can also find ways to also put that into perspective and work together as individuals or as organizations in different sectors, I think it will be really important so that we can also give recommendations as to how that can be made better.
All right, thank you very much. I feel like we have so much to talk about, we've come to the end of the 1 hour. So unless there's somebody that really wants to add something now, before we wrap it up. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for coming. And I was thinking, if you guys enjoyed it and you think that it's important, that maybe I will set up a meeting for next week, Thursday, maybe around the same kind of time. And then we can also get more people involved. I think next week, like I said before, we will try to invite maybe some panelists to have a discussion about maybe we get somebody from Mgurush, Now Pay, or both of them to come and talk about the mobile money, and then maybe get somebody from the Ministry of Commerce to discuss what kind of help they're thinking of giving to the private sector. So if there's not anybody else want to say something before we go? Are we all good?
Yeah. Then just a quick one. Just a quick one.
Yeah.
Just a quick one. I think it would be nice to talk about the opportunities of what we can, what sort of opportunities, business opportunities that can exist, that we can tap into. I think it would be a good conversation, because now we're talking about the problems and how we can go around it, but what sort of new opportunities can we derive from this? Given our sectors, you see MTN, maybe there's an area that they see that certain private sector areas can tap into, an opportunity that myself would not be able to see, but somebody who's working in that area can be able to tap into. So in a way where, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. I definitely agree with you. I think possibly what will have to happen is that there might be another meeting by somebody else from the Uconnect group that would maybe have a more focused on government policy and issues around it. And then I think I'll be keeping this one much more business based, opportunities, challenges, and solutions within business, and how we can, like the topic said, I really want to focus on digitization, how we can move it. So I think we'll keep the conversation going. Thanks everyone for coming. We'll be over the next few days be thinking about, we'll be putting out, sending everyone an email about next week's meeting. But I want to thank everyone again. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all your contributions. And we look forward to fighting this thing and defeating COVID-19 together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for coming through.
Thank you.